A scorned bride defies her fate to save a kingdom, becoming a legendary savior. The grand hall breathed beneath chandeliers that sparkled like frozen stars, their golden light beckoning and harsh. Lady Alara's feet slipped silently across the marbled floor, her deep blue and silver gown trailing a whisper of silk against cold tiles. Jeweled tapestries hung heavy with the weight of history, absorbing her presence but offering no sanctuary. Every eye in the room, sharp and waiting, briefly flickered towards her, then recoiled like startled prey. The candlelight wavered as a sudden surge of wind swept through, carrying whispered conversations laced with suspicion and thinly veiled disdain. A glass shattered somewhere near the dais, a sharp crack that sliced through the murmurs and drew all gazes to the crown prince standing with regal arrogance amidst the assembly. Prince Alistair's smile was a blade, his eyes glittering cruelly beneath heavy lids as they locked onto Alara. He spoke, smooth and deliberate, his voice echoing with the finality of judgment. "Lady Alara, ever the aspiring scholar, yet ever fruitless. Your last attempt at counsel was, regrettably, as lacking in substance as your place within this court." A cold silence followed, so absolute it smothered the flickering flames. Alara's chest tightened, the breath caught somewhere between anger and the suffocating grasp of humiliation. Her emerald eyes burned beneath hooded lashes, seeking something respect, acknowledgement but finding only the splitting cold of rejection. A ripple of laughter, uneasy and thin, crept from the assembly, a chorus of derision that struck like shards of ice against her polished grace. She swallowed, the taste bitter as the wine spilled unnoticed at the foot of the throne. "Enough," the king's voice cut through the tension, a weight both balancing and condemning. Still, the damage had been done. Alara's reputation, fragile as glass, lay cracked beneath Alistair's scorn. Hands clenched at her sides, fingers digging into the cool fabric, as a storm raged silent in her heart, a tumult of shame and fierce resolve. The heavy drums of the minstrels faded to a distant thrum, replaced by the low pounding of her own pulse. The grand hall's portraits, regal faces frozen in time, seemed to watch her retreat, witnesses to a moment that would haunt her steps but not define them. Outside, rain began to fall softly, tapping a steady rhythm against stained glass and stone battlements, a mournful serenade to fallen hopes and unspoken truths. Alara's gaze lifted to the flickering images dancing in the polished silver of a nearby chalice, a broken crown half hidden in shadow. It shimmered like a secret waiting to be reclaimed, a puzzle piece poised at the edge of revelation. A hawk cried from the distant tower, tethered but fierce, its wings beating a steady tattoo against the gathering night. Her breath steadied, the fire within flashing briefly beneath the veils of sorrow, a whispered promise that beneath scorn and shadow, courage still lived. Her steps carried her away from the opulent cage of the court, towards the labyrinthine corridors where whispers and hidden promises mingled in the dark. The silence before the storm settled, a paused breath of fate held tight between fallen bloodlines and the dawning of an uncertain legend. The corridor outside the grand hall was draped in twilight shadows, cool and silent, a stark contrast to the boisterous laughter and sharp whispers that still echoed faintly from the banquet. Lady Alara's footsteps fell softly upon the cold mosaic, the weight of every mocking glance and hushed jeer pressing heavy upon her shoulders. Her deep blue gown, once a symbol of her noble standing, felt like a shackle, brushing against the stone with a mournful rustle. Her emerald eyes scanned the moonlit garden beyond the arched windows, longing for refuge in the serene embrace of nature's quiet. The night air bore a chill, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and blooming night flowers, a subtle balm against her fractured spirit. Yet, even within the garden's delicate arms, Alara felt the sting of isolation, the gnawing echo of doubt whispered by the court's disdain. A silver brooch slipped from her grasp, the hit against the stone path a sharp, solitary note in the night's hush, a broken crown mirrored by the bitter fracture in her heart. The symbol of her lost identity, now abandoned like discarded armor. Her breath caught as shadows danced around her, weaving between the manicured hedges, the moonlight casting fractured patterns that seemed to mimic her own turmoil. The ivy clung and recoiled, its rampant growth a silent testament to resilience amid confinement. Alara's fingers clenched at the folds of her dress, nails digging into soft silk. A flicker of anger rose beneath the swirling storm of shame. "I am more than their scorn," she thought, voice a whispered roar within the silent garden. The defiance kindled like a hidden ember, fragile yet fierce. A hawk's cry shattered the stillness, echoing sharp and wild against the moonlit lake beyond the estate. The bird, tethered yet soaring, a symbol of freedom, seized through struggler-minded Alara of the untamed spirit shimmering beneath courtly decorum. She moved slowly towards the water's edge, the moon's silver path undulating gently across the lake's surface. Her reflection wavered, fragmented by the ripples, revealing glimpses of a woman beyond the whispered rumors and Scorn, resilient, regal, waiting. The wind carried distant laughter and the clatter of glasses, but Alara turned her gaze inward, the garden's quiet embrace a canvas for her unspoken fears and flickering hope. "I will not be broken," she breathed, the words a delicate chant, a tide rising against despair. The shimmering lake mirrored the storm within a conflict of light and shadow, defiance seated in the fertile soil of vulnerability. As her fingers brushed the cool water, a solitary petal floated past, carried by the gentle current, a fragile emblem of renewal amid decay. Alara's breath slowed. Though the night remained dark, a subtle transformation had begun, the first whispered step on the path from rejection to redemption. Her eyes, sharp and steady, reflected the moonlit Lakia's secret pact made beneath the stars to reclaim her strength and identity. The garden held its breath with her, a sanctuary poised between silence and the storm yet to come. Moonlight spilled through the tall stained glass windows of the castle's ancient corridors, tinting the cold stone in jewel-toned blues and purples. Lady Alara's footsteps echoed softly on the polished floor as she wandered through the quiet halls, her gown barely whispering against the ground. The night held a hushed stillness, yet the air was thick with an unspoken tension, like the breath before a storm. Her chest tightened, the weight of rejection and scorn pressing down on her, but beneath the surface, a flicker of something new stirred, a fragile spark reluctant to be smothered. The broken crown, an emblem of lost honor and identity, haunted her thoughts, its cracked silver a haunting mirror of her fractured place within the royal court. As she rounded a shadowed corner near the restricted east wing, the murmur of voices drifted to her ears, low and urgent, punctuated by sharp hisses and dangerous undertones. Alara pressed herself against the cold wall, her breath shallow, eyes narrowing. The voices carried words of betrayal, a plot against the king, whispered names, veiled threats. The conspirators were close, their shadows long and sinister in the lantern light. Her green eyes widened with the weight of the secret unfolding before her, a daring resolve igniting. The garden's moonlit lake surfaced in her memory, a place of reflection and truth, where she had touched her broken crown pledge to reclaim her strength. A distant hawk's cry pierced the night, tethered but wild, its wings beating a steady rhythm against the storm-tossed sky. The symbol of freedom through resilience echoed within her heart. Alara straightened, her regal bearing returning, fierce and unyielding. The sting of public humiliation and courtly rejection no longer shackled her spirit. Instead, the secret she had overheard became a weapon forged in silence and shadow. A gust of wind swept through the hall, rustling tapestries and sending flickers of candlelight dancing along the walls. The night seemed to lean in, awaiting the choice she would make, not just for herself, but for the future of the kingdom she had vowed to protect. She pressed her palm against the cold stone, grounding herself, feeling the kingdom's pulse beneath her fingertips, the tangled web of loyalty and deceit. With each measured breath, her fear yielded to purpose, the embers of courage kindling a fierce new resolve. As dawn threatened the horizon, Alara's silhouette merged with the growing light, a queen in waiting, ready to rise from the depths of scorn and shadow. The camera lingers on the broken crown lying atop the moonlit lake's edge, its fractured gleam catching the first soft ray. Saw silent oath, a promise still to be fulfilled. The stage is set, the pieces moving into place, destiny's call quiet but unrelenting. And with that, Alara steps forward into the night, into the unknown, her heart a tethered hawk ready to unfurl its wings. The first pale light of dawn seeped through heavy drapes, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers across the stone floor of Lady Alara's chamber. The night's chill clung stubbornly to the air, thick with the fragrance of damp earth and blooming night jasmine that crept in from the garden below. Alara stood before the tall mirror, her silhouette framed in deep blue and silver colors of nobility, yet contrasting starkly with the turmoil etched in her piercing green eyes. The echoes of the royal banquet Scorned still reverberated in her Minda symphony of whispered doubts and biting dismissals. Yet beneath the weight of shame there glimmered a spark, a fragile ember of determination refusing to be smothered. She traced the delicate lines of the broken crown pendant resting on her vanity, a symbol of her fractured identity, now a talisman of the struggle ahead. Her footsteps were light but purposeful as she slipped into the garden's embrace. The early mist clung to lush green leaves and velvet petals, shimmering like 1,000 tiny stars kissed by moonlight. The glassy surface of the moonlit lake reflected the chaos within Hera's turbulent dance of light and shadow. Alara's breath formed little clouds in the crisp morning air as she moved toward the hedge maze, its twisted paths a mirror of the court's convoluted intrigues. Each rustle of leaves sounded like a whispered secret, every distant bird call a warning. Her hand brushed against the rough bark of an ancient oak, grounding her as she recalled the hushed voices overheard the previous night, words woven with treachery, hints of a conspiracy against the very throne she was sworn to serve. Determination tightened her jaw, shadows receding from her gaze. No longer would she be a silent spectator swallowed by the court's disdain. As the sun's first rays pierced the horizon, Alara sought allies where least expected, the loyal staff whose eyes often missed the craft of politics but saw truth beneath facades. A gentle knock echoed softly in the servants' quarters, a summons to courage and clandestine partnership. Her voice was steady, resolve lined with softness. There are forces here that threaten more than crowns. We must be vigilant, even in the quietest corners. The gathering was small but earnest, faces touched by soot and sincerity, eyes bright with newfound purpose. Together, they planned, whispering beneath cracked beams and flickering candles. Each secret shared a fragile thread in the vast tapestry of rebellion and hope. But the path ahead was jagged, lined with shadows that shifted with every step. Trust was a currency scarce and precious. Mistakes would be costly. Out beyond the walls, the wind stirred, carrying the cry of the tethered hawk, defiant and restrained, its mastery earned through trial and restraint, a living emblem of the journey Alara had begun. Her gaze lifted to the vast skies, the colors muted but alive with promise. The kingdom's fater OWNT whined on the edge of dawn's fragile light. A coded letter, hastily unfolded from a servant's cloak, landed in her hands, a whisper of invasion, a portent of betrayal. The ink bled slightly, as if the parchment itself trembled beneath the weight of impending doom. Alara folded the note slowly, eyes sharpening with resolve that now burned fierce and focused. The garden's tranquility was deceptive. Beneath its serene veneer, storms brewed, both within and without. Her footsteps faded into the morning mist, a silent vow carried on the cool breeze to fight, to resist, to reclaim her broken crown. The camera lingers on the glistening tethered hawk circling against the pale sky, a symbol of freedom fought for and the battles yet to come. The kingdom awoke, unaware of the storm quietly gathering in the heart of a scorned noblewoman who would not be broken. The candlelight flickered uneasily in the narrow chamber where Lady Alara sat, the shadows stretching and quivering like the secrets locked within these ancient stone walls. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded a scrap of parchment, the coded message she'd stained with smeared ink, now a lifeline to hope amid encroaching darkness. Her emerald eyes scanned the cryptic lines, reading the hidden warning of an imminent threat to the kingdom's fragile peace. Outside, a distant thunder rumbled like a ghost's lament, shaking the lattice of the high tower window. Alara's breath caught a sharp reminder that time was no ally, and choices bore the weight of kingdoms. Her heart was a battleground where courage met fear. The loyalty of the palace staff whispered through the halls in cautious murmurings and furtive glances. They were unlikely allies, yet their loyalty was a fragile web that might either protect or entangle her in endless peril. A sudden scrape at the door sent a pulse racing through her veins. Alara stiffened, the burden in her gaze deepening. A young maid slipped inside, eyes wide but filled with an unspoken resolve. "My lady, you must be cautious. Not all within these walls can be trusted." Alara nodded, her mind racing through strategies born not from courtly training but from raw necessity. The days that followed were a tapestry woven from shadows and whispers. Every step toward unveiling the conspiracy risked drawing the eyes of those lurking in the political maze, eager to silence any threat to their power. Alara moved like a ghost through palace corridors, gathering fragments of truth in stolen moments in coded letters hidden beneath loose stones in the garden's ancient walls, overheard alliances in dimly lit kitchens, and guarded confidences from hearts once closed tight. Her courage was sculpted by sacrifice. Alliances faltered, trusted faces blurred with suspicion, and dangers slithered closer in the gilded halls of power. One night, beneath the watchful gaze of a silvered moon, she found herself cornered in the cold heart of the castle by shadowed figures the conspirators revealed. Blade tips gleamed like shards of night, threats were whispered with venomous tongues. Yet Alara's gaze remained unflinching, cloaked in the defiant strength of the tethered haka symbol of freedom that must be seized through struggle. "I will not be silenced," she declared, voice steady though laced with the echo of countless wounds. A tense standstill held the night captive, a fragile balance between peril and the unyielding fire within. When the danger passed, Alara collapsed against the rugged stone, breath shallow, the weight of near defeat pressing heavy. In the stillness, the broken crown rested beside her, its fractured silver glinting in the moonlight, a constant reminder of the identity lost and the battle yet to be won. Her fingers brushed the emblem with a whispered vow, to reclaim, to restore, to rise. As dawn's first light chipped away at the darkness, Alara's eyes, though weary, sparkled with fierce determination. The road ahead was fraught with shadows and betrayal, but within her burned an unquenchable fire. The camera lingers on the moonlit lake outside, its surface rippled by the soft evening breeze, reflection and truth intertwined, a serene yet haunting mirror to the storm stirring within the noblewoman's heart. The kingdom's fate teetered on the edge of a blade, and Alara was ready to wield hers. The damp cold of her cell seeped into Alara's bones as she crouched beside the narrow window high in the castle tower, its iron bars casting long shadows across the flagstones. The moon hung low and cold as silver sentinel against the vast darkness outside. Within its ghostly light, Alara's gaze fell upon the worn, broken crown emblem she pressed tightly in her hand. Its fractured surface mirrored the rift tearing deep within her soul. The betrayal was a blade sharper than any forged by Smith's trusted allies, whispers of treachery concealed in smiles, secrets traded like poison in the corridors she once called home. She had fought to protect the realm, and yet here she was, confined and betrayed, her voice silent beneath stone walls. Each memory was a shard piercing her resolve. The laughter of the court turned to jeers, the cold dismissal in Prince Alistair's eyes, the whispered plots she'd overheard by the moonlit lake, now turning against her like a tempest. Her fingers clenched the broken crown as the surge of anger flickered with despair. The tethered hawk's cry echoed faintly in her mind, a reminder of freedom won through hardship, a freedom now cruelly withheld. Suddenly, the faintest sound, a soft patter, not of footsteps but of human heartbeats, careful and cautious. A shadow slipped into the cell, a young servant girl, her eyes wide with fear and fierce loyalty, hands carrying a glimmer of hope, a small, wrought key. Alara's breath caught. The key was not just metal. It was a lifeline, a fragile promise etched in courage, Their eyes met, an unspoken covenant forged beneath the weight of shared danger. With trembling hands, Alara took the key, her spirit swelling with the first breath of rebellion. There was still a path out, a chance to reclaim not just herself but the fate of the kingdom. Her gaze drifted back to the window. The moonlit lake shimmered softly beneath the starsa mirror, revealing reflection and truth. The past shadows still clung, but so did the faint glow of dawn. Alara rose slowly, the broken crown resting against her breast, a silent oath to fight, to endure. The shackles of doubt and scorn began to crumble beneath the flickering light of newfound resolve. Outside, the night seemed to hold its breath. The castle's ancient stones whispered of secrets and rebellion, of courage born from despair. And within Alara, a fierce fire ignited the spark of legend, of resilience that would soon blaze brighter than the darkest night. The heavy oak door slammed shut with a finality that reverberated through the silent stone chamber, its echoes swallowed by cold shadows that clung to the walls. Lady Alara stood motionless, the flickering candlelight casting fractured reflections across her pale, resolute face. The silver and deep blue of her gown hung like armor around her slight form, but beneath the fabric, a tempest ragadone of loss, betrayal, and the crushing insufficiency of hope. Outside, the sky wept a relentless rain, the droplets cascading down the castle's ancient walls, mirroring the cold tears that traced silent paths down Alara's cheeks. The storm was a dampening cloak, pressing against her soul, chilling the fire that had once so fiercely burned inside her. The dwindling light of the solitary candle danced erratically, casting shadows that seemed to mock her very existence, shapes twisting like phantom hands grasping at her identity, threatening to unravel all she had fought to hold together. The broken crown pendant, once a symbol of regal strength and noble lineage, lay heavy on the stone floor beside her, disconnected from the warmth of her touch and the hope she once kindled. Her breath came in shallow, uneven rhythms, the heavy silence filled with the unspoken grief of a future unraveling. Alara's eyes, so piercing and fierce, now glazed with the weight of confinement not just of body, but of spirit. Outside the barred window, a lone hawk circled against the lightning-streaked sky, its wings tethered but beating with fierce yearning for freedom. The cry pierced the night, a sound both haunting and hopeful, a reflection of Alara's own struggle against invisible chains. She knelt, fingers trembling, to retrieve the broken crown, tracing its fissures with a tenderness born of desperation. The loss of identity was not merely a public disgrace, it was a chasm swallowing the woman she thought herself to be. A breeze whispered through the narrow chamber, carrying with it the faint, distant chorus of the royal court voices of betrayal, the harsh clatter of footsteps, the cold murmur of conspiracies closing in. Alara's world contracted into the confines of her solitude, the crushing weight of isolation folding her into shadows deeper than any night. Words failed. The courtly laughter and jeers blurred into a dull roar behind her closed eyes. The gentle lap of waves against the moonlit lake emerged in her memory, a mirror of truth and reflection now clouded by storm and fear. A single tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek, glistening like a drop of molten silvera, symbol of both sorrow and the unyielding glimmer of resilience. And as the storm raged beyond the battlements, Alara sat enveloped in darkness, poised on the precipice of despair, the weight of everything lost crushing her fragile spirit, each moment pulling her further from the light and deeper into the abyss. The world stood still, breath held in the tension of unraveling Fatesa moments, suspended between ruin and the faintest stirrings of redemption yet to come. The heavy door clanged shut behind Lady Alara, sealing her in a chamber carved from cold stone. Darkness settled like a suffocating shroud, swallowing the meager light that struggled through the narrow, barred window. The air was thick with dampness and silence, oppressive and unyielding. Alara sank to the floor, her regal gown pooling around her like the tears long withheld. The broken crown pendant, once symbolizing her noble heritage, rested cold and forgotten beside her. Its fractured edges caught what little glow existed, mirroring the agony unraveling inside her. Outside, the wind howled through the castle battlements, carrying with it the distant clatter of armor and whispered secrets. The shadows that had once promised gilded halls now loomed as prison walls, echoing the torment that crushed her spirit. Her green eyes, fierce and luminous moments before, now glazed with a hollow numbness. She grasped the pendant tightly, her fingers trembling as memories of the moonlit lake returned that place of reflection and truth, now a distant sanctuary. A solitary hawk's cry pierced the night, both tethered and wild, an echo of freedom wrested from struggle. Alara drew breath, the sound stirring something fragile within. But the loneliness pressed inward, a relentless reminder of betrayal and isolation. Her self-doubt, once fleeting, became a weight tethered to every heartbeat. She curled into herself, clutching the token that carried her fading hope. The stone beneath her was cold and unyielding, pressing against her bare skin, grounding yet cruel. Her whispered words fell like ghostly petals. Is this my fate? To be lost, forgotten, broken. Time stretched and fractured, every second a stretch of endless night, every silence a void expanding within. The stone walls bore witness only to her solitary despair. In the darkest depths, Alara felt the pulse of life waver yet persist, a fragile heartbeat caught between surrender and defiance. The door remained sealed, the world outside distant and unreachable. Yet within the cold and shadow, the embers of resilience flickered faintly beneath the ash. The chamber seemed to hold its breath, as did Alara, poised on the brink of oblivion, teetering between the collapse of all she had known and a faint, unseen spark waiting, perhaps, to kindle anew. And in that vast silence, the story hung suspended, a fragile pause before the storm of redemption yet to come. The cold stone cell was cloaked in shadows, its stark silence broken only by the gentle, rhythmic drip of water from the cracked ceiling. Alara lay curled on the rough floor, the shards of moonlight slipping through the narrow barred window tracing fractured constellations across her weary face. Her raven hair spilled like ink across the cold flagstones, an unruly dark river reflecting the turmoil within. In her trembling hands, she clutched the broken crown pendant, a once proud symbol now dulled and fragmented like the shreds of hope that fluttered faintly within her heart. The pendant's delicate edges caught the moon's pale shimmer, casting restless patterns that danced along the cell walls like elusive phantoms of a once unyielding spirit. Her breath came shallow, a fragile whisper in the vast solitude. Thoughts tumbled, memories of whispered conspiracies, the bitter taste of betrayal, and the relentless ache of isolation. The pang of loss tightened its grip, threatening to suffocate the fragile pulse of defiance beating faintly beneath waning resolve. But then soft footsteps. A slender shadow slipped through the dim doorway, a young servant girl, eyes bright yet fraught with quiet urgency. In trembling hands, she offered a small, wrought key glistening with the moisture of the night. Their eyes met in unspoken exchange, a beacon piercing the suffocating darkness. The key was more than cold metal. It was the fragile spark of hope, a whispered pledge that salvation could still be found amid the shadows. Alara's fingers closed over the key, the weight grounding her, steadying the storm inside. Her gaze lifted to the barred window, where the moonlit lake shimmered like silver glass, a mirror to reflection and truth. That serene surface, once a place of solace, now beckoned with promise renewed. A sudden cry split the night, the sharp, tethered call of a hawk circling beyond the castle walls. Wild yet bound, its wings beating relentlessly against an invisible tether, a living emblem of the freedom won only through courage and struggle. Alara rose, trembling yet resolved. The broken crown pressed against her chest, no longer a symbol of loss but a call to reclaim, to lead, to rise anew. The chamber held its breath, time hanging suspended between despair and the faint stirrings of legend. With the key warm in her palm and the hawk's call echoing in her heart, Alara stepped into the deepening night, a solitary figure poised on the cusp of destiny and the tumultuous battle to come. And in that fragile hush, a story of courage and resilience began its ascent from the ashes of scorn and shadows. The first pale light of dawn crept shyly into the chamber, softening the harsh angles of the cold stone walls that had confined Lady Alara during the endless night. Her gaze was fixed on the small, worn key cradled tightly in her palm, a token of fragile hope amidst the bleakness that had threatened to swallow her whole. The faint flicker of candlelight joined the emerging sunlight, weaving together shadows and light in a delicate dance across the tumbled sheets at her feet. Outside, the garden whispered with the early breath of spring, petals unfurled cautiously, bathed in the tender glow that chased away the dark. The cherry blossoms painted the landscape with gentle hues of pink and white, a reminder that even after the bitterest winter, new life could bloom. It was beneath these blossoms, by the moonlit lake, that Alara had once sought solace and clarity, a sanctuary where her reflection stared back at her, both familiar and transformed. Her fingers brushed the pendant hanging from her neck, the broken crown, its fractured silver glinting like a beacon of lost identity, yet charged now with the quiet energy of potential renewal. The weight of past scorn and humiliation seemed a little less oppressive, tempered by the resolve growing steadily inside her heart. The soft cooing of doves from the distant belfry mingled with the rustling leaves, filling the air with an unusual peace that belied the turmoil roiling within the palace walls. Alara rose slowly, her steps tentative but sure, carrying the fragile ember of determination that had been reignited by the whispered conspiracies she had uncovered and the allies she had begun to trust. Her emerald eyes, once clouded with doubt and pain, now glimmered with a cautious hope. She moved toward the heavy wooden door, passing portraits of ancestors who had faced kingdoms torn apart and emerged victorious. The echoes of their strength seemed to whisper encouragement, a lineage not of submission but steadfastness. As the door creaked open, the golden light spilled upon her face, tracing the contours of her regal but vulnerable expression. The world outside beckoned, a realm of daunting challenges but also extraordinary possibilities. From the garden below, a lone hawk soared against the morning sky, its wings beating with the rhythmic power of freedom granted through struggle. The sight rekindled an indomitable fire within Alara, a tethered creature poised to take flight. Her voice, when it came, was a soft murmur yet resolute. "This kingdom needs more than silence. It needs courage." The whispered vow was as delicate as the dawn but carried the weight of iron. The light deepened, washing the castle turrets in gold and amber huest world waking around her, eager and uncertain. Alara paused at the balcony's edge, the city sprawling below like a living tapestry of possibility and peril intertwined. The journey ahead was vast, the shadows lingered, but the path toward redemption had begun its subtle unveiling. A breeze stirred, ruffling her raven hair as the first birds took flight, charged with the promise that change, though slow, was possible. The camera pulled back, capturing Alara's solitary figure framed against the breaking dawn, poised on the cusp of transformation. The broken crown gleamed faintly against her chest, a symbol not of defeat, but of an unyielding spirit poised to reclaim her destiny. And in that fragile morning light, the silence broke, the kingdom held its breath, and a hero quietly rose. The walls of the chamber seemed to breathe with tension, their ancient stones steeped in shadows cast by flickering candlelight. Lady Alara's silhouette stood firm amidst the gathering storm. The conspirators, masked in deceit and arrogance, encircled her like vultures sensing their prey's faltering moment. Yet, beneath the harsh glare of fate, a quiet resolve radiated from her eyes, shimmering emerald flames born of suffering now tempered into unyielding courage. The air was taut, charged with the electricity of imminent reckoning. Alara's voice sliced through the oppressive silence, steady and clear. "You sought to silence me, but it is your treachery that will echo through these halls." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. The faces of the traitors shifted from confident sneers to dread as she unveiled the strands of evidences, crawled letters found hidden within the castle's forgotten alcoves, whispered confessions caught in servants' hesitant gazes, and most damning, a coded letter revealing the date and nature of the impending invasion. The broken crown hanging from her neck glinted sharply in the candlelight, a stark symbol of loss reclaimed and identity reforged. Alara moved with purpose, pointing toward the heap of incriminating documents laid bare upon the marble table, her hands steady despite the gravity of the moment. "You underestimated the will of a woman scorned," she declared, her voice ringing with fierce clarity. "Your webs of deceit are tangled no longer." A clang of armor echoed as palace guards surged forward, encircling the conspirators whose faces now betrayed the stark revelation of their downfall. Shadows retreated as the gilded chamber brightened with the renewed hope that justice was not an illusion. Outside, the moon cast silver paths over the lake's still surface, the tethered hawk perched silently upon a branch, its gaze fixed and unwavering, an emblem of freedom poised on the edge of ascension through hard-won struggle. Alara's breath came steady, shoulders lifting with quiet strength. The court's judgment was not mercy but awakening, a victory born of courage's relentless flame. The faces of the assembly shifted from suspicion to admiration as the noblewoman who had once faltered rose resiliently, her spirit unbroken, her leadership undeniable. Whispers of allegiance blossomed, alliances reforged in the fires of revelation and hope. Even Prince Alistair's cold gaze betrayed a flicker of respect and unspoken acknowledgement that the court's tides had shifted irrevocably. Alara's hand reached instinctively for the broken crown pendant. It hung heavy but no longer a symbol of defeat. It was the beacon of a journey forged in fire and loyalty. As the chamber exhaled with unanimous acclaim, Alara's gaze lifted to the distant horizon beyond the castle's stone walls, where the first blush of dawn painted the sky with soft hues of redemption. Her heart beat in quiet triumph, a rhythmic hymn to battles fought, to dark clouds pierced by the light of purpose. The camera drew back slowly as sunlight broke over the throne room's ornate ceiling, casting golden rays upon the noblewoman poised not just as survivor but as the kingdom's rising hope. And beneath the soaring arches, the legend of Lady Alara began to weave itself, a new strength tempered by grace, a broken crown ready to be reforged into a symbol of unity and power. The royal council chamber was draped in a somber hush, its vaulted ceilings absorbing every breath with reverence. Light poured through the stained glass windows, painting the grand hall in hues of amber and crimson, as if the spirits of ancestors whispered their blessings upon this moment. Lady Alara stood at the heart of the assembly, her figure commanding yet serene, draped in a royal blue gown embroidered with silver threads that caught the light like stars reborn. Her raven hair cascaded around her shoulders, framing a face transformed not by the sheen of courtly makeup, but by an indomitable strength tempered in fire and shadow. The broken crown pendant she wore gleamed quietly beneath her throat, no longer a symbol of loss but a testament to resilience and rebirth. The murmurs of the assembly faded as Alara's voice rose, clear and unwavering, cutting through the lingering tension like a sword forged anew. "These walls, witness to truth and treachery alike, now stand as testament to our kingdom's unity. The conspirators revealed tonight sought to shatter this realm, but their schemes were no match for the courage of those who refused to bow to fear." A hush descended. Eyes once clouded with doubt now sparkled with admiration. Even Prince Alistair, seated with regal posture yet softened by the night's revelations, regarded her with a newfound respect, a recognition long overdue. Alara's gaze swept across the council, symbols of power and legacy, embodying the shift from shadow to light. "Let this day be remembered not for the darkness that threatened us but for the courage that saved us. This is our dawn." The chamber erupted in a swell of applause, a wave of affirmation that carried the weight of ages. The broken crown shimmered once more under the vaulted ceiling, its fractured lines now a necklace of triumph rather than defeat. Outside, the tethered hawk soared high against the fading dusk, its wings beating slow and steady, a living metaphor for freedom hard-won through struggle and endurance. Alara stepped forward, her heartbeat steady, her breath calm amid the rising storm of justice. "I stand before you not as one broken, but as the voice of a kingdom united, stronger and wiser from its trials. Together, we shall write the next chapter, fearless and free." The camera lingered, capturing her poised silhouette framed by the tall, arched windows, the golden light igniting her form like a figure sculpted from forges of hope. The shadows that once clung to her fell away, replaced by a radiant aura that transcended the hall's grandeur. Her eyes met Prince Alistair's, a moment charged with unspoken understanding, the promise of a future mended not only by loyalty but by respect and shared purpose. The storm had passed, leaving a kingdom reborn in light and strength. And at its center stood Elorano, longer a noblewoman scorned but a beacon of unity, courage, and redemption. The scene held breath, the moment poised on the brink of a new era, as the halls of power whispered the dawn of legend. Under a sky painted with hues of dawn, Lady Alara stood alone atop the castle's eastern rampart, her gaze stretched beyond the city walls to the lush, rolling landscapes that defined her kingdom. The air was cool and fragrant, laced with the scent of blooming wildflowers and fresh earth, a stark contrast to the chaos that had once threatened to tear her world apart. Her robes, deep blue with silver accents, fluttered gently in the morning breeze, symbolizing the harmony she had fought so fiercely to restore. Her long raven hair caught the first sunlight, shimmering with quiet strength. The broken crown pendant she wore, once a symbol of her lost identity, now gleamed softly in the light, a testament to resilience and the unbreakable spirit she had forged amid adversity. The echoes of the past still whispered in her mind: humiliations at the royal banquet, the betrayal by trusted allies, the burden of carrying the kingdom's fragile hope on her shoulders. Yet, as she gazed over the distant horizon, a profound calm settled within her, a slow unfolding understanding that her journey was not merely about victory but about reclaiming herself. In her quiet reflection, she saw the symbols of her struggles: the tethered hawk high in the sky, momentarily paused as if contemplating its next flight, the moonlit lake beneath the castle walls, mirror to the truth she had faced and accepted, and the fractured crown, now a fragment of a greater whole, reborn in strength. Alara closed her eyes briefly, her fingers resting gently on her heart. The tense battles and dark nights had carved scars into her soul, but they had also awakened a deep, enduring courage. The kingdom around her stirred in the dawn's tender glow, every blade of grass, every flower, a silent tribute to the fire of resilience. A soft smile curved her lips, soft and unforced, yet full of quiet certainty. The weight of rejection and doubt was dissolving into the light. She had found her true strength not in conquest, but in acceptance of her flaws, her fears, her unyielding resolve. In that tranquil moment, she saw the future unfurling like a tapestry, bright, hopeful, and boundless. The kingdom was no longer a battleground but a testament to her journey. And she, once a noble woman scorned, was now a leader forged by fire and tempered in truth. With gentle grace, Alara turned from the horizon, her silhouette framed against the rising sun, a symbol of hope and divine awakening. The scene lingered on her serene face, a living testament to the quiet strength that would guide her kingdom into its next chapter. And as the visuals faded to a golden glow, the story paused, embracing the dawn of her inner peace, ready to carry the legacy of resilience into eternity. The golden sunlight streamed through the towering stained glass, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the marble floor as Lady Alara stood before her kingdom, now united and reborn. Her attire shimmered in the dawn's warm embrace, deep blue and silver, symbols of her strength and grace, flowing still with the soft breeze that heralded new beginnings. Her piercing green eyes, once clouded with doubt and fear, now shone with clarity and acceptance. The crowd assembled in awe, their faces glowing with hope, their spirits lifted by her unwavering presence. Prince Alistair, bearing a transformed countenance, stood beside her, his gaze filled with respect and renewed affection, a silent promise of partnership now forged in the crucible of adversity. At her side, the tethered hawk soared high against the rising sun, its wings a testament to resiliency, a living emblem of freedom earned through struggle, now soaring into a future unchained. The moonlit lake lay serene at the castle's edge, its tranquil surface reflecting the dawn of a new era, truth and reflection finally fully embraced. Alara's hand gently touched the crown jewel of her regalia, crown of polished silver, imbued with the light of collective hope. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the warmth of the kingdom's renewed heartbeat, a symphony of triumph echoing through the halls. In that quiet moment, she understood that her journey was no longer driven by rejection or fear but by the courage to love, and led fiercely. The scars of her past, the broken crown, the shadows of betrayal faded into distant memories, replaced by the luminous truth of her inner strength. Her voice, soft but unwavering, broke the stillness. Together, we stand as one, forged not just by blood or fate but by the unbreakable will to endure. The crowd erupted into cheers, a chorus rising like a rising tide, celebrating not only her victory but the dawn of hope that would inspire generations to come. The camera pulled back slowly, capturing the radiant tableau of a kingdom renewed, Alara standing proud and unbowed, her spirit soaring higher than the tethered hawk. The scene faded into a breathtaking panorama, mountains bathed in gold, the lush landscapes embracing a land healed and hopeful, shimmering beneath the morning sun. The kingdom's story of courage and resilience had written its finest chapter, a testament to the power of love, sacrifice, and unyielding will. And as the horizon glowed with promise, the gentle silence lingered, a cinematic pause in the symphony of renewal, beckoning an everlasting dawn. The grand hall was bathed in the gentle glow of dawn, the morning light spilling through stained glass windows and casting intricate patterns of color and shadow across the stone floor. Lady Alara, her regal robes shimmering in shades of deep blue and silver, stood at the center of the chamber, her figure poised yet soft with quiet strength. Her piercing green eyes gazed out over her kingdom, silent witnesses to the tumultuous journey that had led her here. Outside, the palace's walls shimmered with dew, the lush gardens awakening in soft whispers of life and renewal. The tethered hawk at the highest spire took wing slowly, spreading its wings with deliberate grace, an emblem of freedom gained through strife, soaring high against the pale blue sky. Its flight was a testament to the journey of her soul, lifted and unbound at last. Alara's hand moved gently to the pendant at her neck, the shattered crown, now whole again, crafted from fragments of her past, reforged into a symbol of resilience. She touched it tenderly, a quiet affirmation that her spirit, once broken, had become unbreakable. Her lips curled into a faint, assured smile as she closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the distant murmur of the kingdom's heartbeat. The echoes of betrayal, despair, and triumph faded into a tranquil silence. The scars she had carried, the doubts she had faced, all dissolved beneath the dawning hope that now shimmered like the lake beneath the moonlight, a mirror to truth and rebirth. In that fleeting moment of serenity, the voice within her, soft but firm, whispered, "I am enough. I am whole." The words, like a gentle breeze, carried her spirit beyond the turbulent storms into a realm of lasting peace. With quiet grace, Lady Alara stepped toward the palace's threshold, a beacon of unity, strength, and unshaken spirit. The scene lingered on her figure, framed against the rising sun, the golden light enveloping her like a mantle of assured destiny. The camera slowly pulled back, capturing the vast landscape, the lush fields, the distant mountains, silent witnesses to a legacy built on courage, resilience, and hope's eternal dawn. Everything was still, yet everything was reborn. A kingdom and its queen, united and free at last, stood in quiet harmony beneath the awakening sky. What would you have done in her place? Share your thoughts below.